Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier. Thank you for stopping by. I do appreciate it. My macro thoughts start with Eric Scott Hunsader, and he tweeted this, must have been about 16 hours ago. All active futures during new shock: bonds, currencies, and stock index futures. Home thoughts, let me put that photograph up again of the spa at Finch Hatton's. The place is teeming with leopards. And if you know how difficult leopards are to spot, they're typically nocturnal, very difficult to see because of the camouflage effect, and you see them so fleetingly, momentarily, and you think it's the bush, and then suddenly you realize, no, there's something lurking there. Took me to Daphne Sheldrick, who said it takes nature millions of years to evolve a new species. It takes only minutes to eradicate one from the wild forever. And then there's a fantastic blog, Walking with Giants, in the Savo. In that, the Savo is very famous for elephants, but the elephants actually don't reside near Finch Hatton's. It's more of leopard country now. But this article in Africa Geographic, any safari guide will tell you that the survival of the African elephant, particularly in Savo, hangs in the balance. If this magnificent animal is to be there for my children, then the world needs to hear its cry. What better way to spread this message than to walk amongst these giants with people from all over the world? Let them echo the cry of the elephant. It really is a fabulous park, and if you ever get a chance to go there, it is rugged, it's huge. If you see something, it's just you, and that really is quite a special experience, I think. Political reflections: Russia to boost forces in western flank if US stations arms in Eastern Europe. IFAC stationing heavy US military equipment in the Baltic states and Eastern Europe would amount to the most aggressive step by the Pentagon and NATO since the Cold War. Interfac's news agency quoted a Russian Defense Ministry official as saying on Monday, Russia would be left with no other option but to boost its troops and forces on the western flank, General Yuri Yakubov was quoted as saying. And my conclusions are that Russia is not lying down. Sudanese president left South Africa despite a court order. President Omar Albashir is on his way back, he's back now, to Sudan, his foreign ministry spokesman said, even as South Africa's High Court assesses an application for his arrest. Mr. Bashir, wanted by the International Criminal Court on charges of war crimes, is leaving South Africa. News reports came in that a Sudanese flagged plane left Waterkloof Air Force Base in Pretoria at 11:46 a.m. yesterday. Look, it was always unlikely that the South African President Jacob Zuma was going to be seen as the African president who dispatched Bashir to the ICC. The Guardian is saying Omar al-Bashir case suggests South African foreign policy is going rogue. The South African government's brazen decision to bypass the High Court in Pretoria and seemingly allow Omar al-Bashir, the Sudanese president accused of genocide and war crimes, to leave the country on Monday raises serious questions about the ANC-led administration's commitment to the rule of law, and looks like an enormous V-sign aimed at key allies, including the US, Britain, and the International Criminal Court. The act of defiance by the President Jacob Zuma, and there can be little doubt he was directly involved, places him at the head of a growing band of African leaders who argue that the ICC, which issued arrest warrants for Bashir in 2009, is biased against Africa and has become an oppressive tool of Western powers. Jacob Zuma is an extraordinary political creature, isn't he? And if you haven't seen that YouTube footage of when he's responding to the investigation being thrown out, do try and find it. It's hilarious. I'll put up a photograph of him, and someone has tweeted he is such a happy guy. He is sort of a laughing cavalier, isn't he? Saudi Arabia carried out its 100th execution this year and is on course to set a beheadings record. Not far behind IS, I suppose. And Middle East Eye tweeted Saudi Arabia is on the verge of breaking a record for the most beheadings in a year, and tweeted this photograph, which I'll post. China is now saying its South China Sea island building is almost complete, which is an interesting way to stop the argument of stone cold dead, I suppose, is what they're hoping for. Jamie McKeever posted this photograph and said, this is June 11th, but I think it still applies. Kind of sums up where the Greek talks are right now. I'll put up the photograph so you can take a look. Holger Scheipitz, 10 hours ago, mined the widening gap between Germany and Greece. This was a sense in the bond markets that Greece talks weren't going well. But if you look at the euro is assuming, I think, a conclusion, a favourable end conclusion. Holger also tweeted, sell-off in peripheral bonds continues. Italian bond futures open 77 ticks lower at 128.25. I'll put that photograph up as well. The euro got as high as 113.40, I think. It's now at 113, the figure. Dollar index is below 95. The Japanese yen, 123.51. And Kuroda came out and said he did not mean to manage the dollar yen with his comments the previous week. Swiss franc 0.29290. The pound is at 156.02. Aussie is at 0.7732. India rupee 64.155. South Korean 11.1849. Rial 3.1276. Egyptian pound 762.92. And the South African rand last trading 12.43.15. Dollar index, I'll put up a 3-month chart. We've seen it sort of backing and filling, and obviously the decision around the interest rate hike is now very key. I expect that in September. Euro dollar, obviously trading on the Greek news. The market, I think, wants to push the euro dollar higher. How long it will last higher is a different matter. But let me put up a 3-month chart. We're now trading 113.01. Gold 1184.09. I still remain bearish about gold. Interesting piece in Bloomberg. The world is facing its longest oil glut in at least 3 decades. Oil supply has exceeded demand globally for the past 5 quarters, already the most enduring glut since the 1997 Asian economic crisis. If the OPEC countries were to keep pumping at current rates, it would become the longest surplus since at least 1985 by the 3rd quarter, the data shows. There are few signs the 12-nation group will cut back. Saudi Arabia, OPEC's biggest member, will probably increase production to intensify pressure on US shale drillers, Goldman Sachs predicts. It seems to be taking longer for the oil surplus to clear. And even without the return of Iran, IEA data indicates it could last for the rest of the year. OPEC pumped 31.3 million barrels a day in May and will probably continue to pump around that level in coming months. And I think that's why, what if you follow the oil market, and I'll put up a 3-month chart of crude oil, its recent resilience is mind-boggling. Coming to Africa, in N'Djamena, at least one suicide bomber attacked police and intelligence officers in Chad's capital on Monday. The Telegraph then reported the attack killed at least 20. Until now, N'Djamena had not been attacked. It's a riverside city, lies on the border with Cameroon. It's the headquarters for a regional task force being launched to fight Boko Haram, hence probably the attack. Mark Echeverry tweeted a photograph of a street in Jamena. I'll put that up as well. According to Bloomberg, the African Union's 25th summit could hardly have got to a worse start, they're saying. Opened more than 4 hours late, South Africa became embroiled in a legal dispute over whether to arrest Sudanese President Bashir. Zimbabwe's Mugabe, who's been in power since 1980, railed against presidential term limits. Organizational glitches, presence of some of Africa's most controversial leaders overshadowed 2 days of talks in Johannesburg. And I think this is an important point. The AU will continue to struggle going forward because it's very complex, diverse, heterogeneous continent. Jackie Cilliers, Executive Director at the Institute for Security Studies. Interesting piece by Philip Gurevich, Africa's Succession Debates Coming to Terms, talking about in the summer of 2009, President Obama went to Ghana, gave Africans a lecture about democracy in which he paid tribute to determined voters across the continent who shared his enthusiasm for choosing their own leaders. History is on the side of these brave Africans, Obama said, not with those who use coups or change constitutions to stay in power. Africa doesn't need strong men, it needs strong institutions, he said. Strong slogans, but history's allegiances are rarely so unmistakable. What side is history on, for instance, in a country that has no sustained experience of democracy? If the only choice is between those who use coups and others who use coups, and what if one of those coup-using sides opposes the other because the other is trying to change the constitution to stay in power? That's what happened last October in Burkina Faso. Talking about Burkina Faso, the alignment of the military with people power in Ouagadougou, and how it was hailed across Africa, Burundi, Congo, Rwanda. Baskets and bundles have been arriving at Parliament stuffed with petitions calling on the deputies to amend the constitution so that President Paul Kagame can run for a third term when his current mandate is up. In 2017, he's definitely going to run again. Kagame maintains that he and his apparatus have nothing to do with this effort, but he has dominated Rwandan political life since 1994. And Rwanda is far from an open society. If he didn't want his third term campaign, it wouldn't exist. And then saying in Ghana, Obama spoke of the benefits of peaceful transfers of power even in the wake of closely contested elections, and said, this progress may lack the drama of the 20th century's liberation struggles, but make no mistake, it will ultimately be more significant. Saying there was plenty of drama in Nigeria recently when for the first time in its history, a sitting president, Goodluck Jonathan, was defeated by the leader of the opposition. Muhammadu Buhari then congratulated him and relinquished power. It's hard to imagine how Jonathan could have better served his country or shown how far it has come from its desolate decades of military dictatorships and coups. Kagame was right when he used to say that it would be like a mark of success to step down. Philip Gurevich is saying it's the ultimate act of leadership. I wrote a piece in November about Ouagadougou and its signal to sub-Saharan Africa. This headline in the Mail and Guardian caught my attention. It stopped fighting nearly 15 years ago. But this African country has a ghost army and spends more on its military than Nigeria and South Africa combined. Angola, of course. The FT had an article some time ago, at the beginning of the month, Sub-Saharan deal machine starts to stutter, saying momentum has started to slow, mergers and acquisitions activity in Africa has fallen to its lowest level in more than a decade as a result of collapsing commodity prices, political volatility and an anticipated rise in US interest rates. The value of African deal so far this year stands at $9.2 billion, 23% lower than the same period 12 months ago. Lowest level recorded since 2004, according to data from Deal Logic. Most of this decline reflects a fall in inbound M&A, international companies buying or merging with African businesses. This has dropped by 46% on the same period last year, marking the lowest level in 13 years. Lots of interesting detail. You used to see a lot of oil and gas activity in Nigeria, Kenya and Mozambique. The other thing is we did see a huge amount of interest in mining. Given how the resource prices have fallen, activity has slowed. Interesting, worth reading. It's on Rich Wrap-Ups if you want to dig through it. South African all shares up 3.068% in 2015, but it's been on a losing streak of 3 days in a row. Excellent piece in Quartz about the chicken war being done. South Africa is going to be a lucrative market for US poultry. US-South Africa chicken war comes to an end. One understated point is how market access into South Africa's poultry market could help stimulate America's plunging poultry exports. Over the past 4 months, United States exports fell by 7.4% in volume and 10.7% in value year over year. The 7.4% drop is attributed to the outbreak of H5N2 avian flu that has hit some of the US's largest chicken-producing states like Arkansas, Missouri, and Mississippi. 40 countries have placed restrictions on US chicken imports. And this is interesting. In America, most families consume 5 times more white meat pieces than dark meat pieces. This leaves America with a large dark meat surplus, allowing US producers to export cheap, unwanted dark meat, chicken leg quarters and thighs in particular. The result, local poultry producers cannot compete with US imports since the price of US chicken is below the domestic selling price. Dollar rand 12.44 last. Egyptian EGX30 down 4.604% so far this year. Nigerian all share down 2.703% so far this year. All of these indices have really turned south in the last couple of months. Ghana Stock Exchange is plus 4.547% in 2015. Tanzania has agreed $800 million of loans from Rand Merchant Bank and China Development Bank to bolster its foreign exchange reserves. This is a report that came over Bloomberg. Here in Kenya, a Briton was among the Al-Shabaab fighters who were killed in Kenya. This is expected to be confirmed by tests. Forensic tests are expected to confirm that a British man was among 11 Al-Shabaab fighters killed during an attack in Kenya. Kenya's defense forces believe Thomas Evans, 25 years old, from Buckinghamshire, was among those who died in an attack on a military base in northern Kenya. Mr. Evans, a Muslim convert, changed his name to Abdul Hakim, is believed to be one of the 2 white men among the dead. The British High Commission in Kenya said it was aware of the reports. Here, Uchumi, which is the supermarket chain, has sacked its CEO for gross misconduct and gross negligence, sending shares tumbling. Siano told Reuters he had handed in his contract termination to the Uchumi board 9 months ago, and they gladly accepted it without elaborating further. The company said it would sell off 2 billion shillings worth of non-core assets to inject capital into the business after cash flow problems resulted in suppliers not being paid on time. I'll put up a link so you can check the share price. It was down 6.25%. Yesterday, there's also the official announcement that was released via the stock exchange that's linked on Rich Wrap-Up. Scroll down for Kenya if you just want to get there quickly. And actually, I think this is bullish for the share price. This is rather prescient because I think I wrote a couple of sessions ago, or 3 sessions ago before this announcement came out, that I thought if you win, it would be bullish. I think it'll even be more bullish because clearly there have been significant issues. Williamson Tea reported full-year earnings. Turnover was down 26.242%, but prices have been weaker, as we know. There's been a glut. They reported a loss for the year before tax of 298 million versus a profit of 1 billion shillings the previous time. Earnings per share was negative 23.77 versus 81.36. But they are paying a dividend of 40 shillings a share, funded by reserves, and they've got a ton of cash on the balance sheet. And I've been saying for a while, they should have a more aggressive dividend payout policy. Prices have been weak through the year, they said, as large unsold tea stocks from other producers within Kenya. We expect to see better prices as we enter the financial year due to less tea available in the market. Tea prices were an unknown. Aggressive dividend payout policy revalued the share considerably higher. Yesterday it had a storming run and it's gone even higher today. Captoria Tea also reported full-year results. They too are a sister company. Turnover was down, earnings per share down to negative 5 shillings and 82 cents versus 32.21 cents previously. Kenya shilling at 97.369. Nairobi all shares minus 0.8% this year. NSE 20 down 6.905% this year. And this was interesting. The number of bank accounts holding more than 100,000 shillings rose by 78,160 last year to a record 1.1 million here in Kenya. Interesting, I thought. Once again, thank you for stopping by.